Residents of eMalahleni are vowing to continue blocking the N4. They are angry over inconsistent power supply and outages, and Mayor Conny Nkalitshana visited the area and was beaten up and chased away. Now, they say they are tired of her false promises, and residents of KwaGuqa, as well as surrounding areas, have been without electricity for nearly a week now. Protesters have been blocking traffic on the N4 for the past 3 days. So let's check in now with eNCA's Heidi Giokos, who joins us from there to give us the very latest as to what's happening. Now, Heidi, what are some of the grievances and concerns of the residents?
Well, I must tell you, Tumelo, that it is a very different picture to what we've been told has been happening here this past week, with protesters deciding to basically stay away today. And I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that there is a higher police presence, as well as the local taxi association coming out to defend the community and businesses, as well as infrastructure. Earlier this morning, when we spoke to our colleague Gareth, I'm going to ask my colleague Teddy to just pan and actually show you. It was a very different picture here. There was a coal truck. The front of the coal truck was burnt and was not moving. It was basically blocking this road. Now, this road is significant because it enters, and it's the entrance and the exit of the township Linville here in eMalahleni. So it's a significant one, a very busy one. But the taxi association decided to mobilize, with all taxi owners deciding to come out and to stop anybody who was continuing with their protest action. There is one thing to protest, but there's another thing to basically destroy infrastructure and really stop people from going about their daily lives. Before we listen to what the taxi association said, this particular highway, the N4, that drives all the way into eMalahleni as well as going to Pretoria. My colleague and I, Teddy, were driving all the way down, and almost every 100 meters, I must be honest, it looked like a war scene, because almost every 100 meters you had something either burnt or destroyed, debris in the street, on the highway, without being able to pass through it. There, just down here, there is a wall that has been built. It's been there for some time. That has actually been, part of it has been damaged, and the bricks were actually used to block the highway. Trucks have been burnt, vehicles have been burnt. The massive steel structure of the sign was completely taken off and was used to completely block the highway. So there's been mass destruction here, and it's all got to do and linked with electricity supply in an area called Vosman, which is just a couple of kilometers from where I am standing. But I wanted to listen to what the taxi association had to say about protecting infrastructure and how there are definitely elements of criminality that are at play here.
Look, this thing have started at the beginning of the week, and we thought it will end in 2 days or 3 days. It continued. Yesterday, all the taxi association around eMalahleni, we had a meeting with all the leaders of the taxi association, as well as some councillors, to try and get a solution. And we decided now, in the morning, we must wake up at 3 o'clock, all of us with the police, to do a joint operation, between the police and the taxi owners. It's then we came in the location early in the morning while they were still sleeping. But some of them, they are still burning the tires. We remove everything on the road. We patrol from Linville to all the extensions.
But also, Heidi, I mean, what do we know of these reports coming in that the mayor was assaulted, she was chased away, told to never come back because residents allegedly saying that they're tired of false promises?
Yes, and I think bigger to this issue is the fact that the mayor had addressed community members yesterday, and it's alleged that she had actually indicated that residents should not be complaining because they don't have fridges. And I think it's going to be important for us to clarify that from the mayor herself, to really understand what happened yesterday, why she was attacked the way she was attacked, what was actually said, and also if the electricity issues in Vosman and surrounding areas have been addressed. We have been told by the taxi association here locally that a transformer blew up, and that transformer has not been replaced, and residents are in desperate need of electricity. We definitely are seeing the impact of no electricity because we have been struggling ourselves to get any sort of network or signal. The signal is really bad in this area, but I think we'll have to get perspective from the mayor herself about this. There's also reports coming in that 2 people tragically lost their lives in this week because of the protest action. We are still waiting from confirmation from the police in the province as to what exactly is going on. But I must say, for now, the situation remains slightly calm, and police are on high alert. We've also been seeing helicopters really flying out to try and assess the situation because, as I mentioned, Tumelo, almost every 100 meters there's been something on the highway with the protesters really taking to the streets and causing massive disruptions. But for now, we aren't seeing any protesters. I think the word is out that the police have come out in their numbers, but also the Taxi Association really saying we will defend our community and infrastructure as much as possible.
When you talk of the Taxi Association, you also take me back to the July unrest, Heidi, where in certain parts of South Africa we heard once again the Taxi Association saying that, we will protect infrastructure, no more will be vandalized while we are watching. So another indication, I suppose, of the taxi industry trying to protect the little infrastructure left. But I want to talk about the police presence. Heidi, you did stress the fact that there is a heavy police presence. This, I'm assuming, of course, not to allow the protests to not only necessarily take place, but to get out of hand should they take place. Have you spotted, in terms of numbers, if you had an opportunity, colleague, to even count the amount of cars or at least personnel, and which areas, if they even indicated as to where they'll be prioritizing that particular presence? This so that if there are any motorists driving past, they should not be alarmed. They should know from this conversation that there will be heavy police presence today in the N4.
Yes, I think it's important for motorists driving into eMalahleni and using the N4 highway to know that there will be some sort of delay. Many parts of the N4 highway have actually been blocked off because there are still trucks that have been burnt, vehicles that have been burnt. There is debris on the highway as well that has still not been removed. Once again, it indicates the severity of this protest that took place. We have been seeing big cranes coming in to move the massive infrastructure that was placed on the highways. But in terms of numbers, we are seeing a high police presence. Just driving to this particular spot where we are, which is on one of the bridges just underneath the township of Linville, we did see a number of police vehicles driving here. I saw about 3 to 4 police signalas, a number of police vehicles. As I indicated, helicopters also patrolling from the sky. So there is a high police presence. So people must be made aware that there is a lot going on. The police are trying to monitor. I did speak to one police officer just a short while ago to get an indication of whether or not there are any flare-ups, and he has said for now the situation remains calm. However, they are worried that this could flare up in the next couple of hours. This particular spot on the N4, just before the Walter Sisulu Drive off-ramp, this seems to be a hot spot underneath here, under this bridge, into the township of Linville, as well as Vosman and Extension 14, we have been told, are hotspot areas. So the police will be patrolling these areas, as well as outside the local municipality in town in eMalahleni.
Yeah, and also just talking about the impact of particularly that traffic, Heidi. I mean, I understand Vusishongwe, the MEC of Community Safety out in Mpumalanga, just talking about the impact of the protests yesterday and the fact that motorists would need to use alternative routes. I mean, he alluded to the fact that the N4 toll road is quite a significant, essential link between South Africa and countries like Eswatini, Mozambique and Botswana. So definitely government felt that impact in terms of the economic, impact and the economic implications, rather, of that protest. I suppose another reason why heavy police presence being there today to assure that road is open, at least free-flowing, if possible, so to allow the country, South Africa, Eswatini, Mozambique, to continue driving past that route.
Yes, a very significant point you make there, Tumelo, given the fact that it seems as though yesterday and the day before, this particular area was brought to a complete standstill. Unfortunately, the truck has been moved, but Teddy can actually just show you that you can still see remains of coal here. I mean, coal trucks were being stopped and completely vandalized. Vehicles were also being stopped and completely vandalized and burnt beyond recognition. This is a very significant route because it also heads into Middelburg and very important coal towns and coal mines here, moving into the power stations as well. So this route is very important to be fully functional, open and operating. And there was mass destruction in terms of, you actually saw signs being completely taken off, unscrewed. I mean, I don't know how many people were used to unscrew the actual steel barricade and sign to be thrown into the road like that. So the roads were not open. People had to reroute into the townships to actually get back onto the N4 highway, and this is when the townships were now also being impacted. So it's going to be critical for them to make sure there is a police presence and that they make sure the roads are fully operational and open.
Well, colleague, this way I leave it with you, of course, for this morning, but we'll be sure to come back to you once again, Heidi, should there be any other developments. But so far, Heidi Giokos saying those visuals quite different from what occurred yesterday, a lot quiet, and that could be alluded to the fact that members of the SAPs have been, of course, deployed to the N4 to ensure that there is calm and there is no violence, or at least vandalism, as far as cars being blocked, as well as trucks and, any infrastructure also being vandalized out in the area. This as protests yesterday occurred for lack of power within the area of eMalahleni.